Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Dear Kardec Radio listeners, welcome back to the messengers in our home. Today we're going to talk about chapter 43, Before the Meeting, discovering how the good spirits prepare the environment for the spiritist meeting to take place and what we can do on our part to help them in their endeavor. Hello, Mackenzie.
Hi, Francisca. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another chapter of the messengers in our home.
And before we start, let's take a moment to elevate our thoughts to the higher spheres. Dear Mother, Father God, Creator of the universe and of our yet small hearts, once again, we are united in your name to learn more about your laws and especially the exchange between the spiritual and material world, and how much good can be done from the good spirits in our favor. And so we thank you for this blessed opportunity, this life that we have, to learn and to grow, to learn to love above anything else. And we ask you to please open our hearts and minds so that the teachings of tonight's study can be practiced in our daily lives, because that's what's most important. The theory, the knowledge is one thing, but to practice it, to really absorb it in the depths of our hearts and souls, is what makes a difference in our lives, is what helps us in the process of our inner reform. So we thank you for your support. We thank especially the good spirits who are always around us, trying to help us whenever we are in tune with them, so that they can reach us through inspiration, intuition, etc. And with their permission, we now would like to start our meeting, and so be it. Here we are, chapter 43, enjoy.
Chapter 43, Before the Meeting. Spiritual preparations for the meeting were busy and complex. We returned to Dona Isabel's residence a little before 6 p.m., and the room was already filled with busy workers. I found some of the activities unusual, so I asked our guide a few questions, which he kindly answered. Carrying out an effective spiritual work session is no simple thing. Whenever there are incarnate spirits devotedly and cheerfully involved in their labor, devoid of worries, unhealthy experiences, or unreasonable apprehensions, we can set vast resources in motion to achieve success. Of course, we cannot take part in childish activities in this respect. Those who don't wish to perform their obligations with due seriousness will obviously encounter spirits that are not serious, because physical death does not mean automatic renewal for those who have not endeavored to renew themselves. Wherever frivolous souls are gathered, there frivolousness will be. In Isabel's case, however, we are always ready and willing to help her spiritually constructive efforts. In all areas of evolution, it's natural that the sincere and effective worker should receive increasingly ample resources. Wherever activity for the good is found, a higher order of spiritual cooperation will be found there. Our kindly friend fell silent. I continued to observe the laborious activities of some of the brothers and sisters as they were dividing the room in an unusual way by utilizing long fluidic bands of some sort. Aniceto rescued me from my perplexity. These friends are performing the work of setting up safeguards around the area. A few dozen sufferers will be brought in for tonight's work, and it is essential to limit the area of their influence in this family temple. That is why our fellow spirits are preparing the necessary magnetic divisions. I was impressed at noticing that they were magnetizing the air itself. However, our instructor kindly informed me, "Don't be too impressed, Andre. In our line of work, magnetism is the predominant force, and we are compelled to make widespread use of it." And he concluded, "Even the priests of ancient Egypt were aware of the fact that to achieve certain effects, it was essential to impregnate the atmosphere with spiritual elements, saturating it with the positive forces of their will. To disseminate the light of the gospel to discarnates, varied and complex provisions are necessary, without which everything would merely result in more disturbances. This center is tiny if considered from the material point of view, but it has great meaning for us. We must be vigilant. Let's not forget that." While the spiritual preparation continued at full steam, Dona Isabel and Joaninha were also taking care of various arrangements for the meeting. They went over the entire area with brooms and feather dusters. Then they covered the table with a snow-white tablecloth and brought in small vessels of pure water. At an order from one of the superiors of the church home, the guards spread out around it. The remarkable supervision of the benefactors was apparent in the smallest details. Everything displayed order, service, and simplicity. Shortly after 6, the needy began to arrive from a sphere invisible to the ordinary human. If regular people were granted a glimpse, however slight, of this group of disturbed and suffering discarnate spirits, they would undoubtedly change their attitudes in their everyday lives. In this respect, we should likewise include the majority of spiritists who regularly attend instructional meetings but who show no motivation for self-education. They have a vague idea of the spirit world, but continue to be concerned with minding their habitual selfishness. The panorama of individual rectification after physical death is so extensive and varied that I lack the words to explain my immense surprise. Those skeletal faces aroused everyone's compassion. Disturbed spirits were coming into the room in small groups, accompanied by their fraternal guides. They looked like corpses resurrected from their deathbeds. Some of them had a hard time moving. This was a veritable gathering of the lame and maimed, according to gospel symbolism. Most of them, explained Aniceto, are discouraged and embittered brothers and sisters who want renewal but do not know how to begin. Only sufferers of that sort can come here because Isidoro and Isabel's family sanctuary is not equipped to receive intentionally wicked spirits. Each center has its own special purpose. Indeed, the recent arrivals had deep anguish imprinted on their faces. There was a large number of sobbing women. It was truly a disturbing scene. A few spirits held their hands to their bellies or were pressing down on wounded areas. Many were wearing bandages and dressings. A lot of them, said Aniceto, have yet to face the realities of corporeal death, and by large, they are all slaves to the idea of illness. There are people, and you, as doctors, used to know a lot of them, who actually take pleasure in cultivating illness. They enjoy detailed diagnosis, monitor with indescribable passion the appearance of signs of death in their bodies, and study theories regarding their illnesses very carefully, but without taking such care in analyzing their daily obligations. And when they can't find what they are looking for in books, they count on lengthy attention from their doctors, the scrupulous care of nurses, and long lectures concerning their illnesses, to which they are willing prisoners. After discarnating, it is far more difficult for them to understand the truth, since they hold to their dominant ideas. Sometimes, deep down, they are good souls who are dedicated to their kin and are useful in the restricted area of understanding where they have taken refuge, but nevertheless, they have been bogged down in mental contamination for many centuries. And with a different expression, he reflected, "It takes all of us ages to break out of the old shell of individualism. The vision of universality carries a high price tag, and we aren't always willing to pay it. We don't want to renounce our old tastes, and we run from making praiseworthy sacrifices. Under such circumstances, the world that prevails for the discarnate soul for a long time is the personal kingdom of our lower creations. Thus, those who have cultivated illness have submitted themselves to this empire. While incarnate, it is only logical that we offer every measure of assistance to our physical body, which functions as a sacred vessel. But fixing one's health, while at the same time contaminating one's mind, are two essentially contradictory approaches." His talk was wonderfully instructive. However, the growing number of needy spirits was calling for our help. Many were weeping quietly, others were moaning more loudly. Finally, Aniceto announced, "Let's get to work. For us, spirit workers, our labor has already begun. The prayer and efforts of our incarnate fellow spirits represent the boundary for this meeting of assistance and illumination in Jesus Christ." And tonight we're talking about chapter 43, Before the Meeting. And now we start to get very, very close to the end of this book. It's been a wonderful journey so far. And like last week, for the previous 2 weeks actually, when Andre, Vicente, and Aniceto, they were in the countryside, right, learning a lot and teaching us as well about how important it is, our connection to nature, right, to go to the countryside, stay at the beach, enjoying nature and refueling ourselves, because from nature we can get a lot of these energies that we need to live. Learn how to breathe better, learn how to be grateful for what we have here: water, the air, the plants, the animals, and be grateful in general for life and for being reincarnated once again, so that we can fulfill all our duties, our tasks, and to learn more and more how to love ourselves by loving the others, and as the goal of all of us should be to live and to love God above everything else. But then it was starting to get dark. Dawn was coming, and they started to go back to Dona Isabel's house, and they arrived there. But they are going to have another meeting. Donna Isabel and the boys and girls and other people will get to her house. But what we see here, what we're going to see happening here, is that before the meeting starts, before the actual physical meeting starts at her house, the spirits, the discarnate spirits, are already working at her house. And it's not as if they are working alone. Donna Isabel is also working at her house. And if we think of her house at that specific moment as a spiritist center or as a church or as a temple, we can imagine how the good spirits are always surrounding those environments, those places, to help prepare the environment for the help that we will get when we get there, that we will receive once we are there, once we are inside there. And when I say we, I'm talking about not only us, the ones who are listening to this, the incarnate ones who are listening to this, but also and as well the discarnate spirits who will be helped at the Spiritist Center. Even, and this is very important to notice, that even if the meeting that's going to happen at the Spiritist Center is not a mediumistic meeting, even if it's just, and by just here, I'm not saying that it's less important, but I'm saying that it is not a specific mediumistic meeting, but it is, for example, a gospel teaching for the kids, for example, or a public lecture when we sometimes don't even have passes at the end of the meeting, or in a church or in a temple, and they don't have these mediumistic meetings as we have in Spiritism. So it is not just for receiving the spirits, to hear them talk and to talk to them, right? To try to have a conversation, to try to have this discussion about why they're suffering and so on and so forth. That happens in a mediumistic meeting, but that while we are gathered together in this physical place by thinking of good things, by praying to God, by reading these messages, the spirits on the other side find that place, find that moment to be a suitable place to help the discarnate spirits that can come there at that specific time. So that's what we're seeing here in this chapter, in chapter 43, and that's properly titled Before the Meeting, because that's where we're going to see some sort of preparation that they do to the environment, to the rooms, to the house, in this specific case, for the treatment, for receiving the spirits who are going to be there. So just by starting, Andre says that they're there a little before 6 p.m., and he says that when they get there, the room is already filled with busy workers. So Andre found those activities a little bit unusual, and these are the ones these activities are the ones that I'm talking about. So Andre asks Aniceto about it, and then, of course, that Aniceto will explain to him and will explain to us that these spiritual work sessions is no simple thing. And he goes on and says, when we have incarnate spirits devotedly and cheerfully involved in their labor, devoid of worries, unhealthy experiences, or unreasonable apprehensions, we can, the discarnate spirits who are helping the meeting, we can set the vast resources in motion to achieve success. So this is very important, because what he is saying here is that, okay, everybody can try to have this, but it's going to be a completely different approach when you are involved in a meeting like this, but then you are full of worries, you are not preoccupied, not worried about having a healthy experience, or you have a lot of apprehensions and you don't focus on what is necessary. Instead, you get lost in so many small things that the work just doesn't flow. So what Aniceto is telling us here is that once we decide to have a meeting like this, be it in our house, be it in the Spiritist Center, we really need to understand that these works need to be done in a proper way. Of course, that there will be problems, there will be issues that will arrive and that we will need to address them. But what he is saying is things need to be fixed while they're going, right? We cannot have a meeting that's always problematic. We need to understand that once we set up a meeting like this, we need to have some ground rules. Everybody needs to agree to those rules, and then we need to let it flow. And as problems arise, then we try to solve the problems, but with love, with understanding of each other, and trying to meet everybody's expectations, but not unreasonable expectations or unreasonable apprehensions. We cannot transform our meetings in unhealthy and in an unhealthy experience. We need to that the message is that the way we behave, the way we interact with each other, to be a healthy one, and we cannot have our meeting to be full of worries at all times. So we can have a day where we have some worries, but then we will try to solve it healthily and not without reason. So what Aniceto is trying to teach us here is that maybe we can have one of these things in one day, the other one in a different day, but if we have all three at all times, then we really need to see if we are doing the right thing. Because this is our part of the work. And without that part of the work, it is impossible or almost impossible for the good spirits to come and help us, because we are not even agreeing with basic rules. So how come the good spirits can come and say, let's do this, right? It will be impossible. So that's what Aniceto is inviting us to do here. He's saying, look, do your part the best you can, and we will help this meeting to achieve success. And that's what he goes on to say. Of course, we cannot take part in childish activities in this respect. And sometimes, although we are all grown-ups, most of us who are listening to this, although I know some friends from California that they put their children to hear to this show while it's on air, or maybe even later on. So, but what does Aniceto mean when he says childish activities? He wants to let us know that even us adults, when we are in a meeting, sometimes we are so selfish to some degree that we cannot get out of our comfort zone and approach our brother and our sister to solve the problem. So we enclose ourselves even more, and then we cannot find agreement in anything. And then, if we cannot find agreement in this, how will the good spirits be able to help us if we are not even, let's say, talking to each other or understanding each other in what the goal of the meeting is, right? So that's basically what he wants us to understand here, is that those who don't wish to perform their obligations with due seriousness will obviously encounter spirits that are not serious, because physical death does not mean automatic renewal for those who have not endeavored to renew themselves. So if we don't if we don't see the meeting that we are going to with the seriousness that it deserves, then it is natural that the good spirits will be there to try to help us for a while. But then, if they see that we are not actively and actually doing anything to really improve that, they will try to find some place where they can really work and where they can really be productive. And what will happen is that we're going to start to attract spirits that also don't take their obligations very seriously. And then everything will go downwards instead of going upwards in terms of improvement. Because, and that's what he explains, not all spirits are good ones. And of course that we know that. But what he means is, if I don't try, if I don't put my effort to renew myself while I am incarnated, while I am going and living here in the material world, once I die, I will not be renewed just because I died. It's not an automatic conversion. It is a continuous work of improvement. So, naturally, there are spirits who didn't make the necessary effort, or make the proper effort, or made enough effort to improve themselves while incarnating. So when they discarnate, they're still the same. They're still going to have to improve themselves, to make the effort to improve, make the effort to renew. So they're still as imperfect as we are. And we will start attracting these kinds of spirits to our meetings. And that's basically what we don't want if we are really trying to improve ourselves, and if we are really trying to have these gatherings, have these meetings to not only help ourselves but help the others. And he finalizes by saying that, look, in Isabel's case here, this is not what's happening here. What's happening is that she is so serious, and the meeting is so serious, that we are always ready, because we find the right place and we find the people that really want to do a serious job, and we are here to help, and we are being helped as well. So it's a perfect match for what we need to do. And then he finalizes by saying, wherever activity for the good is found, a higher order of spiritual cooperation will be found there. And that's what we aim with our own lives, with our own meetings. If we and look, when I say, and when he says seriousness, right? This serious effort. He's not saying that we should be all with our faces not smiling and always serious, as if we are in a military function. No, it needs, and it has to be a light, right? We can smile, right? We can have proper jokes, right? We need to have a good level of friendship, but it needs to be a serious work, right? We need to know when to stop the laugh, when to stop the jokes, right? The kinds of jokes that we do when we are amongst friends, because there are time for everything, right? There is time for all these things in our meetings, in our lives, and that's what he wants us to understand, is that, okay, hey, it needs to be a gathering of friends who are really willing to improve themselves, to help others, and to some degree, right, have some fun and enjoy that moment. Because if the work of love, right, if the labor of love, it's not one that gives us this good sensation, right, this lightness of spirit, there needs to be something wrong, right? And by lightness of spirit, I'm not saying that it cannot be that we won't suffer sometimes and we won't cry sometimes. No, we will cry sometimes, but in the end, we understand that what we're doing is really to improve ourselves and to help the others who are coming our way. So André says that Aniceto is silent after he says that, and he, as a good observer, starts to look around, and what he sees is he doesn't say wall, but he looks at what the discarnate spirits are doing, and he describes as if these spirits are blocking the passage, are building these fluidic walls. He says fluidic bands of some sort. So it is as if these spirits are creating these protections. And when he is thinking about this, Aniceto looks at him and says, hey, these friends are performing the work of setting up safeguards around the area, because there will be spirits discarnate spirits who will try to get to our house, to get to this work. But we cannot allow every spirit to come in. Naturally, can you imagine like 1,000 people coming into the small spiritist center? There needs to be a limit to what we can receive at the same time. And in spirituality is the same thing. And more than this, sometimes, see, if you have an emergency, a real emergency, like there's an accident, you're not going to a family clinic. You need to go to the emergency room. So there are different types of spirits who can come to certain types of meetings. And that's basically what they are doing at Dona Isabel's house. They are limiting, right, the possibility of some types of spirits to arrive and to get to her house, because the workers who are there, they are limited in the scope of who the types of illnesses or maladies or problems they can help to solve. So they are preparing the necessary magnetic divisions. And Andres says that he was impressed at noticing that they were magnetizing the air itself. So it is interesting, because these days it's so weird sometimes when we see that in Spiritism, when we are, let's say, at the end of a regular meeting, right, we usually have these passes, right, which is you go into a small room and then you sit down, and then the pass giver will arrive close to you and wave the hands before you. Will not. This session is completely without touch, right? And the movement of these hands, we are giving magnetism, this life energy, to help balance the energy that we have within our bodies. And what is interesting here is that this magnetism is used not only in to a person, right, but they are doing it on the air to block certain elements from getting in the house, from getting from the outside to inside the house. And by Andres' description, we can clearly see that even inside the house, they are limiting the points in the house where those spirits can get into, right? Maybe they can come up to a point, but they will only be able to come to that point and will not be able to enter the other side, because it's blocked by this magnetism that the good spirits are using. And what Aniceto describes is that magnetism is the predominant force, and we are compelled. He doesn't say that we can use, that we should use. No, he says that we are compelled to make widespread use of it, because it's how it is done. It is how we separate. We can create these blocks, these barriers from spirits coming and going to harm, or to not even to harm because they want to harm, but because they are so ill, they are so sick that they can get some people, some incarnate spirits. There are let's say, more prone to perceiving these energies, these negative energies, to get influenced by it and then fall ill more easily. So it is very interesting that sometimes even, although Andre is telling about this, and we read this in Kardec in so many ways, and sometimes in Spiritism we hear people talking about magnetism in such a derogatory way, that almost saying as if it doesn't work or if we shouldn't be using it. And we see it happening at all times in Andre Luiz's books, stories, and in Allan Kardec's books as well. Allan Kardec being the one who started Spiritism. Not that he wrote everything, but he codified, or he organized the teachings of the good spirits to us. And Aniceto goes on to say that even the priests of ancient Egypt were aware of this fact, right? And then they saturated their environment, the places where they were, with the positive forces of their will, which is basically the same that the good spirits are doing that. And Aniceto goes on to say that, well, to help these spirits who will come here, and not only the discarnate spirits, but even the incarnate spirits, we need to prepare this room. We need to prepare the place where they are coming, so that we can help the best way that we can. We can use everything that we have to help them. So if we think of a hospital, right, for example, it is, of course, that in some places in the world, if we don't have the cleanest place, we will use whatever we have to treat a person that just arrived. But we all understand that it is much better if we need a hospital, and if we go into one, that we see that everything is clean, that the air is without any specific bad odor, that the floors are wiped, that the walls are very clean, that the doctors are clean. So it is natural, and I think that we don't even need to be talking about this. So because we see this, right? We understand this. It's so simple for us to understand this these days. In the spirit world is the same. We need, and that's what they're doing there. We're preparing the room. We're preparing the environment for receiving those spirits. And it's with magnetism. And he says, this center is tiny if considered from the material point of view. What he's saying is, this is a small hospital. When you look at from the outside, when you look to it from the material perspective, it's a small house, right? We already know that the house, Dona Isabel's house, is a very small one. But, and that's where it comes, this house, this hospital is very small from the material point of view, but it is very important. It has a great meaning for us, Aniceto says. It's where we can do our work. It's the one place on this region where we can do our work. Can we imagine if we have in a certain place of the town like 10 of these houses where we have good spirits going in and out to help not only the family but to help the other spirits who are around? So are we, that's the question to ourselves, are we making our home, making our dwelling a place where the good spirits can come to use our house, a room in our house, at least to help other spirits that are around? Can they trust us with the environment that we are setting up for ourselves, for our family there? We must be vigilant. Let's not forget that. That's not what I am saying. I'm reading from the book. Aniceto finalizes this idea saying that we must be vigilant. Let's not forget that. It is very important for them. It should be as well very important for us. And as I was saying in the beginning, they are preparing the environment. But Dona Isabel and Joaninha are also taking care of the arrangements. So let's imagine the Spiritist Center we go to. When I get to the Spiritist Center, let's say the meeting starts at 7, right? Should we get to our Spiritist Center at 7 if we are the ones who are responsible for it? Of course not, right? If we go to a meeting or to an office, when we get to the office, if it's, let's say, I have an appointment for 7 p.m. or 3 p.m., when I get at the office at 10 to 3, for example, shouldn't we expect that the other person who I'm going to meet is already there, or at least that the place that I'm going to visit is already open? I'm not saying that once in a while it may happen that we are not able to get to our Spiritist Center in time, and then we are not able to open it at the right time, but it is only natural that we are preparing the place before the time that the meeting starts. And that's what Dona Isabel and Joanina are doing, right? They already covered the table. They are organizing, cleaning, wiping, and preparing everything physically, materially. And we can see that they are working together. The discarnate spirits and the incarnate spirits, they are all preparing the environment for what's going to happen in a while. So let's say if our meeting starts at 7, why not prepare to get to our meeting, right, 1 hour before, at least half an hour before, so we can rest for a while, do a prayer, make a, pray to ask for the good spirits to be there, although they are already there, preparing as we see here. But it's a good measure to prepare the place for those who are coming, right? What else does he say? Andres says that, everything displayed order, service, and simplicity. The benefactors were there to, like we were describing, right? To prepare these barriers, magnetizing the water, and everything. And then, right after 6, the spirits start to arrive at that house. The meeting will start in a few minutes, right? So the spirits start to arrive naturally, not only by themselves, but as we saw previously, there are these good spirits who know other spirits. They start walking around and seeing if there are spirits who need help, and they help them to get there. So this meeting has a moment to start, right? 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. So the spirits have to organize around that time where they can be helped, and they can help other spirits to get there. What is interesting is how Andres describes these spirits who are arriving there. Right? He says that they are really, really disturbed and suffering, discarnate spirits. And he says that if we, the incarnate ones, were able to see these spirits arriving at some of these places, these houses, these churches, these temples, these spiritist centers, we would change the way that we behave. And naturally, we are not seeing, right? We cannot see them. But by Andres' description, we should really start to think about ourselves. And it's not about the others, as we keep saying and repeating from time to time. It's not about, oh, look how bad they look how bad they are. But the question is, how did they get to what we see them, to how we see them now? What did they do to be like that right now? And what am I doing? Am I doing something similar to what they did and they ended up like that? Or am I already learning from their experience and not doing the same thing? Because what Andres says right after this is, in this respect, we should likewise include the majority of spiritists who regularly attend instructional meetings but who show no motivation for what? For self-education. they have, and he's talking about us now, he's talking to us specifically, because I keep repeating from time to time as well, I keep saying that sometimes when we read a story like this, we look at the story and then we always think of the others, right? So, this happened to that person, this happened to that person, but I don't relate to that person. And what I say is, although sometimes I may not relate, I need to take that experience, I need to learn from the experience to do the right thing or to not do what the person is doing. But here, Andre is talking straight to us. Really straight to us. He wants to make this point very, very clear, that we study, like let's say I'm here right now talking about this, you are here listening, so we are in a certain way studying, right? Regularly attending, this goes on air every Wednesday, right? We regularly attend these instructional meetings. But the question that he is asking us is, are we motivated to self-educate, or are we only using this time to learn about this and have a vague idea, as he says here in the text, of the spirit world, but continue to be concerned with minding our habitual selfishness and not worrying about taking these teachings, taking the examples of other spirits, be it good spirits or bad spirits, be it good examples or bad examples, and using them in our lives. And by that I mean, if I see a good example, try to follow the good example. If I see a bad example, I will say, okay, now I learned that this is not as good for me as I thought, and I will not do it anymore, right? And once again, he says that it is so varied. It varies so much, the amount of suffering that we see and the amount of love that we see, that he lacks the words to explain his immense surprise when he saw those spirits who have like skeletal faces, disturbing spirits, right? When you see them, you just get so I wouldn't say frightened, but you get so distressed by what they look like. And to look at those spirits and imagine that they are just like ourselves, and that unfortunately took the wrong approach to some of their problems. And that's something that we should really, really stop to think about. How much are we taking the right or the better or the best approach to solve our problems and our difficulties inside, right? And he even compares them to the gospel symbolism of the lame and maimed, right? The ones who are really suffering. And it's unfortunate that we can get to that point. But these spirits, as Aniceto explains right after Andre describes them, he says, these are not intentionally wicked spirits. These are not spirits who are really evil because they want to be evil, because they want to inflict pain in others. No, these are spirits who are discouraged and embittered, and they want renewal, but they do not know how to begin. So look, they really, 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 to a certain degree, look like ourselves, who I assume want renewal and are really striving to do it. Fortunately and hopefully, we already know how to begin to renew ourselves. Right? Otherwise, I think I wouldn't know how and why you're still listening to this program after 42 chapters, right? After almost a year listening and studying with us this book, The Messenger. So we think that we know how to begin. So that's why I said they look like, they're not exactly like us, but they look like us, because we want renewal, but these spirits in this case, they don't know how to begin. let's pray God that we know that we are already started, and that we started, and that we are doing our effort to really improve and to renew ourselves. And that's the purpose of Dona Isabel's house, right? They, Isidoro and Dona Isabel, right? They set up this house to help these suffering spirits of that sort, that they want to change, they want to improve themselves, but they are so stuck in themselves that they cannot see how to do it. This group, this center, this place, this home is not for those who are intentionally wicked. And with this, we see, as we said before, that every spiritist center, every house of God, be it from any religion, has a certain type of activity. Just like there are doctors, engineers, lawyers, cooks, lots of different professions around in different places, right? In doctors, there's a lot of different categories of doctors, right? A lot of different categories of engineers, of lawyers, of cooks. There are some who prepare themselves more, let's say, to cook sweets, right? Cakes and cupcakes and so on. And there are others who like to prepare dinners, right, for late night, or some like to prepare for breakfast. And specialties. This the same here with each center. Each center has its own special purpose. And that's what happens here, right? Aniceto says, well, this is what this place that we are going to work, that we are working for a while, these are the types of spirits who can come here. The spirits who want renewal, but do not know how to begin. My question to myself, and I hope everybody does the same, asks oneself is, do we want renewal? And do we know how to begin? And I hope that the answer is yes. Just a small break here. I'd like to remind everyone that it is very important, if you can, at the time that you are listening, to have the book with you. Because maybe I go over some passages here, run too fast over some parts. You would like a better explanation on this topic or on this part. You can always send us emails. You can go to KardecRadio.com and you'll find the contact page. And while there, you can see the full range of programs that we have. We have programs for kids. We have programs for young adults. We have Spiritist Talks. We have talk shows, right, on Saturday mornings with Vanessa Anceloni. She always interviews people. We have this live conversation on Sunday night. So go to KardecRadio.com. You will find so many more ways to learn how to begin to do this renewal that we all need, not only for ourselves, but that we all need for the world we live in. KardecRadio.com, and then you will find a lot more resources for our own improvement, for our own self-education, and for us to get out of ourselves and meet the needy outside of our own home, or sometimes, and most importantly, most of the times, inside our own home, so that we can help each other to turn this world into a better world for every single one of us. And so, coming back, right, Andre keeps describing a little bit, and those spirits who are arriving there, they are not intentionally wicked, as Aniceto explains. So Andre describes a little bit that they are crying, right, that they have deep anguish imprinted on their faces. Some of them are pressing the hands to their bellies, or pressing down on wounded areas. A lot of them were wearing bandages and dressings, so they were really suffering, or apparently really suffering. And what Aniceto explains to us is that a lot of them have yet to face the realities of corporeal death. What does he want to tell us about this. What is this expression, the realities of corporeal death? What is interesting is that once we die, and we already touched a little bit on this in this chapter, we talked about this in other chapters as well. But the idea, unfortunately, for some of us, and I would add to this some of us, I would add spiritists as well, just like Andre said a few paragraphs ago. And what does Aniceto mean by facing the realities of corporeal death? He wants to let us know that, hey, look, you die, your body stays, your spirit goes on. This doesn't change who you are. If you're having a certain kind of problem, mental problem, psychological problem, it's not just because you left your body behind that you will change, that you will be a better person, that you will not suffer anymore. That's what we need to have in our minds. We have to face the realities of corporeal death. It's not magic. It's not something that, oh, now I put this ring on and then everything changes. Oh, now I take my body out and I'm just the spirit without the body, and then now I'm the best spirit around. It doesn't work like that, right? We are all, to a certain degree, slaves. This is what Aniceto says, that these spirits, they are all slaves to the idea of illness. And to a certain degree, aren't we all? We are always trying to find a reason for our suffering. Naturally, here he is talking about physical illness. That's if we already read the chapter, so we know what he's talking about, right? So we have, he is talking about people who, we can say, right, the word is hypochondria, right? The hypochondriacs who find disease everywhere, right? Oh no, I'm sick of this, and I have this problem, I have that problem. Even when the doctors say that you don't have the problem, you keep finding a reason to have this problem. Yeah? It is common, maybe not as common in my life, for example. Maybe it's more common in your life. But we hear stories and we see people that have this situation, right, of trying to find problems or trying to find illnesses or maladies for that body. Oh, I'm sick of this. I have this sickness. I have this problem. I have this illness. But we can make the connection to what Aniceto is telling us here, not only to the physical maladies or to the physical illnesses, but we can clearly see that, for example, I have a problem or something is happening in my life, and where do I look to find the reason for that problem? Am I looking outside of myself, or am I looking in my behavior? Am I looking to why that thing happened to me, why the others did this and I am suffering? Or am I looking at myself and saying, look, I am behaving like this, and I did this for a long time, and now these are just the consequences of what I did. This is basically the same thing, right? Oh, why am I doing this? Why am I suffering? Oh, I have this illness, I have this, and I have that. When we die, if I have that mentality, it's not just because I died that this will go away, because that mentality is not in the body that stayed behind. That mentality, that fixed idea, is in me as a spirit. And that's why he says that some of these spirits have yet to face the realities of corporeal death. They don't know sometimes, they don't even know that they died, because it's still the same thing. Right? They're still suffering. They still have their pains. They still have their problems in their bellies. They still have their wounds. Why? Because everything is in the mind. If I look up and say, I will suffer less,
I will suffer less. The pain may be the same, but the suffering will not be the same, because I'm saying that the suffering will not be the same. By saying this, by looking at that pain through a different perspective, it all changes. And that's what Aniceto is saying that these spirits are not doing. They are looking at this as if one magic solution would happen, and that magic solution would be death. And that's not what happens. Unfortunately, we are still, to some degree, like that. And that's what we need to understand, that we need to change. And then he says, right, when he's talking about these illnesses, they study theories regarding their illnesses very carefully, but without taking such care in analyzing he says, their daily obligations. It's not, but once again, he's talking to us, right? We want everything to change. We want everything to be better, but let the others change. I want to keep doing the same way. I want to keep being the same person. I don't want to change anything. I want the others to change. I want the others to change their daily obligations towards myself. What am I willing, though, to do? What am I willing to change? What do I want to change in the world? Be the change you want the world to have. That's what Gandhi used to say. And that's how we need to learn how to behave. Maybe I'm sick. Maybe I have an illness. Maybe it was caused because of something outside. But did I eat too much? Did I drink too much? Did I not sleep well? Am I having less sleep and then weakening my body and then allowing for the viruses to take hold of me? Am I getting too tired and then not allowing my body to rest? Am I eating too much or too little? What is my daily obligation? What am I doing? That's really a big part of the equation of helping the spirits to help ourselves. But he goes further. Aniceto goes even further. And he says that we become prisoners of our own ideas. And we want to be prisoners. That's the worst part. He goes and says, after discarnating, it is far more difficult for us to understand the truth because we hold to our dominant ideas. We thought about those, we had those ideas for such a long time, and we didn't want to change them, that now it is very, very hard for us to think differently. And so I am become a prisoner of my own ideas. I created my prison. I created the cell that I'm locked into. I may be a very good person. I may be a good person. And that's what he says. Sometimes deep down, they are good souls. We are good souls. And we'd like to dedicate to our brothers, to our kin. And we are useful in the restricted area of understanding where we have taken refuge. We are able to do a lot or some of the good things that I can do in a certain circle. But I am so attached to those ideas. He uses the expression bogged down in mental contamination. I am so stuck in that position that when I die, it's not just because I died that these situations will solve themselves automatically. And he says, in bogged down in mental contamination for many centuries. So he's not just talking about this life for the past 10 years. No, if we are still thinking about this, it is probably because we've been doing this for a long, long time. And if it has been, and if we have been doing this for a long, long time, let's get, let's say, serious. Let's get straight to the point here. if I'm doing certain things for many centuries, how do we expect to solve this problem in a year, in 2 years, even in 10 years? And that's why we are living again here on earth. And that's why we have a full life to do it. So we can change maybe these centuries of mental contamination with the strength of moving forward, and with Spiritism opening, spreading out these ideas, we can see that there's an end to it. But we need to stick to the plan. Otherwise, we will keep our minds contaminated, and it will take longer and longer and longer to clean them up. And that's basically how he gets to the end of what he's going to say, what he's teaching us here. It takes all of us ages to break out of the old shell of individualism. It takes us a long time. It is not just one day. Some people apparently think that, oh, now I found the right place. And then they found this church, this temple, this Spiritist center. Awesome, now I'm a new person. After a month, 2 months, then it all goes back to where it was before. Why? Because it is not magic. Because it doesn't work like Harry Potter. We don't have a magic wand that will solve everything for us. We were the ones who created the problems. We need to solve the problems. We need to change. We need to make the effort to change. We don't want, and I'm quoting again, we don't want to renounce our old tastes, and we run from making praiseworthy sacrifices. We don't want to do that. That's what Aniceto is telling us. Unfortunately, we like, quote unquote here, so much what we built because it's what our selfishness wants. But at the same time, after a while, it doesn't fulfill us anymore, and then we suffer. So we don't want to renounce our old tastes. And then, instead of running away, and renouncing the old way and changing to a new way, it's only through making praiseworthy sacrifices that we can do that. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very tough to do. Under such circumstances, he goes on, the world that prevails for the discarnate soul for a long time is the personal kingdom of our lower creations. Once again, we keep looking for culprits, for the ones responsible for my suffering, but we look for these culprits outside of ourselves. However, it is usually, most of the time, majority of the times, the culprit is me, myself and I. We are the responsible for our own lives, for our sufferings, but for our happiness as well. With the help of the good spirits, with the help of our dear friend Jesus, we can do it. We will do it. But we need to do our part. We need to make praiseworthy sacrifices. The spirits can help, but I need to help myself. Unfortunately, in these days, this is even more prevalent. We tend to look more and more and more about our physical health. Is it not important? Of course it is. Completely important. Be more healthy, run more, do exercises, eat more naturally, and have a good time for rest, good time for work. Balance our lives physically. Very, very important. But what I see and what a lot of people see and keep commenting on is that there are a lot of people who are having a better life in terms of health, while at the same time, and now I'm using Aniceto's words here, while at the same time contaminating one's mind. Unfortunately, we do this all the time, and these are two essentially contradictory approaches. Fixing the mind without fixing the body and destroying the mind. We have to find balance between both. We cannot contaminate our mind while fixing our health, and it is going to be very tough if we get sick, very, very sick, destroy our bodies, trying to clean up our minds. It is a balance. We need to take care of the body and of the spirit. It's one of our tasks here as we learn in the Gospel according to Spiritism as well. And Andres says it was very, very instructive what Aniceto taught them and hopefully taught all of us. But now it's time for work. A lot of spirits are there waiting. Some are weeping quietly, others are moaning more loudly. And then finally Aniceto announces, let's get to work. For us, spirit workers, our labor has already begun. The prayer and efforts of our incarnate fellow spirits represent the boundary for this meeting of assistance and illumination in Jesus Christ. They prayed, and now the good spirits can help them help everybody else. And with these last words of Aniceto, we get to the end of our program tonight, of our meeting tonight, hoping that you all have enjoyed our reading, our discussion, and I'm going to be waiting for you next week. Not only me and Francisca, I hope we can all meet next week again at the same time here on Kardec Radio at the Messengers in our home. Have a great week, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.